Hey guys, it's Mo with Mudruk, and welcome to the very first rendition of the Zen Mudruk podcast, the only podcast in the world where we cover polishing the diamond and enlightening the mind. A book where you can find true happiness and learn to be at peace with yourself, and also learn to work and live for the benefit of others. Alright, so for the first story of today, I'd like to talk about underdogs, or more specifically, underdogs related to the film industry. Now, you know Marvel, right? We all know Marvel. I know Marvel, he knows Marvel. Even if you're not interested in comics or superheroes, we've heard it at least once or twice in our lifetime. We all know Iron Man, we all know Captain America, we all know Avengers, right? Avengers, Earth's mightiest defenders. But do we know the Asian guy? Do we know the Asian hero that's standing right next to the Avengers, sitting in the background, helping them defend Earth and helping them kill all the alien invaders? Probably not, because they've never been in the spotlight until now. Marvel has never really paid attention to ethnic minorities up until 2018 with their first release of Black Panther, which I believe the main actor was Chadwick Boseman, who portrayed T'Challa as the Black Panther, who comes from this mystical country in Africa called Wakanda, but that's a story for another day. And now in 2021, we have our newest depiction very first depiction of an Asian superhero. Not as the side character, not as the comedic relief, not as the guy that dies in 20 minutes, but the very first all-Asian superhero movie with its very own Asian lead. And that man is Simu Liu, and the movie's title is called Shang-chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. It's about this one Asian man that has to face his destiny, that has to learn the true meaning of what family or familial bonds are, and has to fight dragons and all that stuff, right? All that Marvel stuff, fun stuff. And the reason why Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings has enraptured people all over the world so much, I believe it's because, not just because of its depiction of Asian culture, as in food and clothing and language, but also because of its beautiful fight choreography. For the decade that the MCU, or the Marvel Cinematic Universe, has been around, we've all become accustomed to the very stereotypical fight scenes. We've seen Captain America throwing his shield. We see Iron Man flying through the air, shooting people. We've seen very rough, very westernized fighting styles. But with the newest release of Shang-Chi, we finally get to dabble and we finally get to see a little hint of Kung Fu, or more so Asian fighting styles, Asian fighting techniques, which is not very rough or very rugged, but more dance-like, very serene, very calm, and very beautiful, right? When you watch the fight scenes in this movie, you can truly feel like you're floating through the air, or it feels sort of like the deep rolling waves of the ocean. So I believe that is something that a lot of people enjoyed, because we all know Bruce Lee, the founding father of martial arts in America, truly started that sort of foundation and tradition and culture in America, and was slowly building up until this point. But I believe that Shang-Chi also built off of Bruce Lee's first steps and is starting to create a whole new era of accepting traditional Asian martial arts, such as Kung Fu, Karate, or many others. So that is one of the first topics I'd like to cover for today. If you have not seen Shang-Chi in theaters yet, please go and watch it before you miss it. You don't want to, because every Marvel movie, I believe, should be watched in theaters. If not, then there's no point, because every blockbuster deserves to be watched in a movie theater. But of course, always wear your mask, be careful, don't get coronavirus, right? So, now for something completely different. For the very first episode, or otherwise known as the pilot episode of the Zen Mudruk podcast, I'd like to cover there is no chapter name actually, page 22, or the chapter that begins with Surrendering Your Delusions on page 22. Once again, for those of you who have your books, please open up to the page 22. And for those of you who don't have the book, please just sit back, enjoy, and relax and enjoy the show. And excuse me if I sound like a chain smoker that's been unable to quit smoking for 30 years. It's because this is my 10th take, actually, and my voice is starting to feel the effects of this. But moving on, no rest for the wicked. So, beginning with surrendering your delusions. Regardless of who you are, if you harbor hatred against others, you will be hated by others, because the being who is closest to your hateful mind is you, your own body and no one else's. Sip of water. If you respect others, due to your respectful mind, you will be respected by others. Looking down on others and trying to be above everyone else will instead put you below everyone else. Thus, it is said that if you look down on others, you will be short of stature in your next life. Oh, maybe that's why I'm very short. I'm a manlet, everybody. I'll try to be nicer in this life. Since the mind that is belittling others is your own, you yourself will appear stunted. One who views others as undesirable will have an undesirable face, while one who respects and looks up to others will have a noble and handsome appearance. If a human hits an animal such as a cow or a dog, he imprints the animal's image strongly in his own mind because of his hate. He could easily be reborn as that kind of animal in his next life. And since the animal imprints the abusive human in its mind, if it goes on to receive a human body, it is likely to become an abusive person. This is a stern reality of the law of the mind. Now, before we move on, I'd like to talk about hate for a little bit. And I'd like to give a short anecdote of myself and hatred, my relationship with hatred. Now, my entire life, or most of my early school life, I was bullied a lot because I spoke differently from other people and I thought differently from my peers. And I remember this one moment, I will never forget this one moment in elementary school when I had this childhood bully that couldn't accept me for who I was, the English-speaking child, the child who was able to read English books in class during recess and get full scores on his tests. Perhaps he was jealous. To this day, I don't really remember, and maybe I don't want to remember. But the only thing I remember is that he came up to me and we were on the playground. And suddenly he takes this shovel, right? I was saying something to my friends and then I was also talking to him because I thought we were friends. But then he suddenly gets really, really red in the face, like a tomato, like tomato spaghetti. And he takes this shovel, this small shovel, and then he rams it into my face, right into my jaw. And I feel like my jaw is cracking. I feel like my tooth cracked. And of course, I'm bent over in pain. And then he just calmly walks away. And I didn't realize it at first. I thought he was just this crazy psychopath, right? Who comes up to this child and then hits him in the face with not his hand, but a crazy rusty shovel. And I hated him for a very long time. But then I overheard the teacher talking about that child's parents. And what she was saying is that his parents were getting divorced, and his father had a gambling addiction, and he had to move out of his house into a very, very poor neighborhood. And I believe that was around the time when he hit me in the face with a shovel. Of course, he also needed a place to vent his anger, and I was the only subject for that in his vicinity. And of course, I still am a little annoyed that he had to use a shovel to get his point across, but I understand and I believe that me hating him for what he did doesn't make me any better. And he should also probably be listening to this podcast right now. So that is the lesson that I'd like to give you all today. Maybe somebody has hurt you. Maybe somebody has beaten you up. Maybe somebody has talked bad about you for 10 or more years. Maybe you talk badly about yourself to yourself in the mirror every single day. But what about this? How about instead of constantly being negative, constantly hating on yourself and hating on others, try to read this chapter. Surrender your anger. Surrender your anger. Try to turn it into something productive. You don't have to forget your anger. You don't have to say, oh, I'm all enlightened and I'm zen. I'm not angry anymore. No, why don't you turn it into something productive? It can be working. It can be going out with your friends. It can be studying. It can be anything more productive than slowly killing yourself in your heart and in your mind. Just some humble opinions from this random guy on the internet. Alright, so moving on. Also, if you are forced into a war, you have to face the war with the intention of sweeping away the enemy forces in order to defend your nation and your people, not with the intention of shooting down every enemy soldier. If you were to have the mentality of killing each one, a vendetta between you and the dead ones would begin. Whereas if you have the intention of clearing away the entire enemy, it becomes merely a contest between one group and another. Among the emperors of the Qing dynasty, 6 were enlightened. Emperor Kangxi ruled without killing anyone. The others, when forced into wars, used this expression of clearing the enemy force. A general, Peke, became insane, however, because of the guilt he felt for murdering thousands of soldiers who had surrendered to him. And if you summarize that into one word, that could probably be PTSD. Also, Cao Cao, in his last moments, was frightened to death by haunting images of all the people who were wrongfully killed due to his mistakes. He died in horror. As Cao Cao's mind weakened, all the regrets imprinted in his mind arose to terrify him. And now this is exactly what I talked about, right? If every day you spend in your negative loophole of, I hate myself, I hate everyone around me, I hate the people who did this to me, you're never really going to get anything done, and maybe you're going to keep this habit up for the next 50, 70, 100 years until you're on your deathbed, and maybe your final words, sort of like Cao Cao, will just be, what have I done, right? What have I done with my life? And you will die in horror, and nobody wants to do that. Maybe some people do, but you shouldn't do that, because if you truly want to be successful, if you want to learn the mindset of what it means to be rich, what it means to be successful, what it means to actually be happy, you need to be productive. You need to stop being Cao Cao. You need to start to surrender your mind. Pray to God. Pray to me. Pray to Mo with Mujak. Pray to Zeus, the god of the sky. Do anything to try and surrender your mind whilst doing something that will not only take your mind off these negative feelings, but replacing these negative feelings with a productive and positive energy that you get from achieving something, like a mini goal. Maybe I was able to work hard and get a raise at work. Think about that. That would slowly start to replace, I hate myself, I'm ugly, I'm fat, and I can't lose weight. And moving on, we plant merit with our minds, and we commit crimes with our minds. With our minds, we imprint images. This one mind is like an artist. It can draw anything, and what it draws is realized. Exactly what I just said. If you surrender your impressions, ideas, thoughts, and so on at the moment they arise, without imprinting them on your mind will not be tainted, just as the lotus flower is not tainted by the muddy water whence it grows. And I believe this is an amazing metaphor, because we see lotus flowers, but we never really think about its beauty. We never really realize that underneath the very pristine, very beautiful petals of the flower, there lies a very dark and grimy underworld, where you can see its roots, you can see its past, you can see its very humble, very poverty-filled beginnings. But what people see, and what the lotus flower shows to other people, is a very bright and very calm demeanor. And I'm not saying to fake it, right? The lotus flower is not faking it. It simply grew into something beautiful, sort of like the ugly duckling analogy, where the very ugly and outcast duckling grew into something beautiful like a swan. So I'm saying that instead of faking it, instead of faking your persona, I want you to turn and develop and evolve into that type of person. Because what is the meaning of humans, right? We evolve. We try to change for the better, hence one of the Mujik mantras. So that was Surrendering Your Delusions, just a quick read over of this chapter and also a few inputs of a little bit of input from my very humble opinions. And that is it for the very first episode, the pilot episode of the Zen Mujik podcast. And it's quite late. Everybody should be sleeping now. For those of you who are awake and willing to listen to this new series, please give me more ideas. Give me a little bit of constructive criticism. Tell me what you like, don't like, and maybe we can improve from here. So once again, thank you. It has been Mo with Mujik, and peace.